What's up, PL Tech Reviews fans, and welcome back for another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking at last about how much technology has changed from 2005 to 2025. So get yourselves comfortable, very long video ahead, and let's get ready for the ride. Technology has advanced in numerous ways throughout the 21st century, with massive leaps since the century began 25 years ago. While videotapes were still popular at the beginning of the century and were still being sold and recorded onto, it wasn't long before the DVD became more popular, and we're now living in an era where streaming is ultimately more popular than both of those other forms of media put together. Likewise, we've also seen the digitising of print products, with apps such as Kindle and Apple Books leading to a present where absolutely all print, including newspapers and other forms, have been digitised, although not as many people have been as quick to fully replace versions of print with digital versions. But back in 2005, life was a lot less techy. So let's jump on the time machine and go back to 2005. A year after the birth of Facebook, the rise of Skype and blogging, and an ongoing shift to change the way mobile phones looked. 2005 was a year when technology was advancing to an extent that it changed the way we lived, whether with new hardware or more new social media sites. Yes, we were still used to entertaining ourselves outside, shock horror, and with other activities that didn't require a screen. But it was still clear that the newest technology of the day was slowly convincing us to spend more time inside. With mobile phones, the Apple iPod, an expanding video game market, new social media sites, and new game consoles selling in millions over the first 5 years, the entire tech industry was worth $624, which the folks over in Silicon Valley were more than excited to see. But one thing that it wasn't as easy to do in 2005 was to share videos online, until a little site called YouTube was registered on Valentine's Day of that year. Some young people might find this hard to believe, but if you wanted to make your own films and share them with family and friends before 2005, your easiest option was to burn the content to a disk. Furthermore, if you found some videos or films someone had managed to upload to the internet, you would have to download third-party software that would allow you greater access of viewing it. plus the broadband wasn't that great. However, that all changed after Steve Chen, Chad Hurley, and George Cowan created YouTube, which, unless you're living under a rock, we now recognise as the world's largest video sharing site. But although they always had the idea for it to be a video sharing site of some sort, the original version of the site looked nothing like what it eventually turned out to be, as it was originally designed to be a dating website, or to be more specific, according to Steve Chen,
a video version of hotornot.com.
Equipped with not only a username and password box, but also a favorites, messages, videos, and my profile buttons. There were also drop-down menus to select which sex you were, what type of person you were seeking, and between what ages you would prefer the person to be. Not only that, but at one point, the co-founder even considered paying women $20 to upload dating videos. Then, when that didn't catch on for some unknown reason, the site was redesigned as a free video hosting site, which is roughly the same as what it remains as today. The official first video, me at the show, was posted on the 23rd of April 2005, and ever since then, more videos keep on getting added. It is expected that as of 2025, 2.6 million videos are posted a day, and that number can climb way over that at any time. Yet 2005 wasn't only the year when social media as we knew it expanded even further, and it became easier to view videos, because it was also that year when we continued to witness the rise of digital maps. Although Yahoo had been ahead of the game, having launched their own digital map 3 years previously in March 2002, digital maps weren't that widely used in 2005. If you were travelling anywhere at the time, you would have likely had to print out travelling instructions, which you would have then put into your car, along with everyone else you would have been travelling with, and of course an old paper map. However, after the launch of probably the most successful map provider today, Google, this all changed. But how did we use them? I hear various young people asking. Through a little thing called a sat-nav, which we can ask your parents and grandparents about. Meanwhile, in computer world, Apple introduced an accessibility feature called VoiceOver, as well as a feature called Spotlight. However, unfortunately, all of this good news in the tech industry wasn't good for everyone in 2005, which was unfortunately the case for Microsoft after they rushed into launching their Xbox 360, having only launched their own games console in 2001. It was very important for Microsoft to have a successful second console. It had been a slow uphill battle for them to initially sell enough Xboxes, with the console having to compete with Sony's PS2 and Nintendo GameCube when it first came out, and with new PlayStation and Nintendo consoles on the horizon. They had their eyes set on getting their new console out before the competition. But of course, it's often better to not get too far ahead of yourself that you start making major mistakes, which is something that Microsoft ended up learning the hard way. You say, wow, Microsoft had been eager to get the Xbox 360 out. They had unfortunately not had time to fix every technical difficulty the console was experiencing, and that ended up being the case when they ended up sending out consoles that were plagued with a technical problem known as the Red Ring of Death, caused by the connectors inside the components of the Xbox 360. The Red Ring of Death stops the 360 from turning on and would occur when the temperature of the components would go hot and cold too rapidly, resulting in the green lights turning red, then breaking. By the time the console was 9 months into its life cycle, around 30 to 40% of consoles were being returned, and something commonly referred to as a cardboard coffin, until Microsoft were eventually able to figure out the problem and send out replacements. But yes, that's the end of 2005, so now let's go forward to 2006 and find out what that year had in store for us. If you were to ask nerds who were alive at the time how they look back on the 2006 tech scene, you'll likely be told that it was an amazing time. Not only was it the year when YouTube was bought by Google, but it was also the year when Facebook expanded away from a Harvard dorm room and outwards to the world. While in computer world, we were treated to the first Intel MacBook laptops as well as widgets. But if you're interested in technology and social networks that were introduced that year instead of advancements to sites and devices, it's worth remembering that 2006 was also the year when a new social media site called Twitter first appeared on the internet. Originally spelled TWTTO, a decision made by Noah Glass due to a trend in the tech world where you would drop files. The brainchild of Jack Dorsey, while he was an employee at the podcasting company Audio. The social media site now known as X originally started out as an SMS communications platform to help groups of friends stay in the loop with each other, with a big emphasis on microblogging. That was still the plan when he proposed it to Evan Williams and Biz Stone, who gave him the go-ahead to create it. And on the 21st of March 2006, Jack Dorsey posted the first tweet. Throughout the next few years, the social network began to grow in popularity, and by 2007, it gained attention while serving as a communication tool for attendees at the South by Southwest Festival. However, it wasn't until 2009 that it eventually reached its peak after features such as hashtags were added, which enabled users to create categories for topics that interest them, followed by an appearance of Evan Williams on the Oprah Winfrey Show. This was enough to make it even popular among the celebrity class, as well as those in other areas of media. And by 2012, it was being used by multiple people worldwide, including politicians. After the 2012 US presidential election, Barack Obama used Twitter to declare victory first, and since then it's gained a huge membership of people who are more politically minded. While it has been rebranded as X today, but is still a largely popular social network. If you are the type of person interested in celebrity culture, big business, and various areas of politics. However, it isn't exactly a social network you'll find your everyday person going on to, especially if you're the type of person who enjoys a much more private social media presence. Nevertheless, away from the social media world, 2006 was also the year of another major console war, as Nintendo and PlayStation set their eyes on winning the prize for being the best console of the next generation. But while the PS3 was a relatively good console for its time, with support for Blu-ray, remote connectivity, with the PSP and PS Vita, and with the wider PlayStation network. It was the Nintendo Wii which ultimately influenced a bigger change in the tech industry and would win with the public overall. Launched by Nintendo in November 2006, the Nintendo Wii may arguably be the first technological device in history that led towards the digital exercise apps and devices that we have today, coming with a wireless controller that could fit in your hand and sense motion. We would use that controller to play a wide series of engrossing games, which in most cases required only your movement to play. And while this did create a lot of problems for disabled gamers who wanted to get in on the action, unless they stuck to games such as SingStar, it still sold over 101 million units compared to 87.4 million units for the PS3 and 85.7 million units for the Xbox 360. Now let's go another year ahead for 2007 and see what that has. By 2007, we had experienced different kinds of technology, with pretty much everything having been played with before then. But if there was one area of technology that was massively underrepresented, it was a touch interface on a device. And while we did have the Nintendo DS, it wasn't until the iPhone was unveiled by Steve Jobs on the 9th of January 2007 that we were introduced to a new reality. Coming with a 3.5-inch touchscreen, a 2-megapixel camera, as well as multi-touch features. The original iPhone came with access to iTunes, which for younger generations was the instant version of Apple Music, as well as support for email, phone, text and voicemail, and a range of applications. And these features must have helped strike a nerve, because by the end of the year, Apple had sold 1.4 million iPhones. However, it wasn't only the iPhone that changed the way we used products in 2007, as that was also the year when books began to get digitised, with the introduction of an e-reader called Kindle. Developed by Amazon, the original Kindle was able to download books, blogs, magazines and newspapers, while also featuring a high-resolution electronic display that symbolized real paper and came with expandable SD card storage. This enabled users to instantly download and enjoy 90,000 books as soon as it launched. However, unlike the iPhone, it didn't come with a touchscreen, instead offering a keyboard that helped you interact with it, and a touchscreen wasn't included until many years later, after Amazon included it on their Kindle Touch in 2011. However, you were able to enjoy Kindle books on other devices before then. So if you couldn't use the interface, you could use the app on whatever computer you had. And other noticeable technologies that came out in 2007 include the Zip Printer 450 in America, or Z Printer 450 in the UK, the iRobot Load Scudder cleaning robot, and the Wow Charger charging pad, a precursor to today's wireless charging mat. But now, let's go and see what was in 2008. Well, it wasn't a particularly buzzworthy year tech-wise, depending on your own preferences in tech. 2008 was still a year when new devices were played about with, new services were introduced, and when more companies joined the smartphone race. And it was a particularly good year for Android fans, as this was the year when Android launched their first smartphone, being the HTC Dream, also known as the T-Mobile G1, featuring a sliding physical keyboard, a touchscreen display, an internal micro SD card slot, mini SIM and a trackball. The HTC Dream was met with mixed reviews, with many users finding it clunky, clumsy and small, while others found it interesting and weird, but overall liked it. However, given the rise in retro technology now, who knows if the HTC Dream or T-Mobile G1 could make a comeback, given that it originally sold 1 million units. But nevertheless, away from the Android side, something else that didn't exist before 2008 was the Apple App Store, which only came into existence after the 10th of July 2008, creating a groundbreaking way of selling apps if you were a developer. While it was possible to sell apps and software before 2008, it would be harder for developers to succeed in the development industry if they were working for a small business. Hence why the App Store created a groundbreaking new system that launched with 500 apps along with a featured tab, a categories tab, a top 50s tab, a search tab, and an updates tab, creating various ways for developers to quiz over how far they were ahead and how popular their app or game was. As of 2025, there are 1.96 million apps on the Apple App Store, and as is the case with YouTube videos, this number can rise at any time. Some other noticeable technology inventions and devices from 2008, however, include experiments with flexible display technology, paving the way for foldable devices, including phones, flash memory, expanding to numerous devices, plus GPS expanded to mobile phones. 2009 was the year that closed the curtain on one decade, while preparing us for a decade of change that was just ahead, with a lot of experimental innovations already on offer, and one device that definitely matched the experimental mood tech was being developed in that year was an early prototype of the smart thermostat, also known as the Energy Hub dashboard, which was inspired by a 2000 Toyota Prius that was made of plastic with a screen in the middle that was capable of wirelessly talking to the furnace while informing you about how much electricity or gas each device was using and how much it would cost you. But while it was designed to only give information about how much energy was being used and finances relating to it, you could also turn appliances on and off using it. Throughout really smart technology devices wouldn't exist for another few years, this was definitely something that was impressive for the time. However, probably more groundbreaking was the fact that 2009 was the year when a little messaging app called WhatsApp was launched, which is widely regarded as the world's most popular messaging app today. Founded in 2009 by Brian Acton and Jan Kuhn, WhatsApp was launched as an alternative to SMS messaging, which could often be costly depending on what type of content you wanted to message people, and also wasn't great for security. And that was hence the thinking behind WhatsApp and why WhatsApp became such a revolutionary idea, eventually gaining 2 billion users who are all able to communicate with others, no matter their geographic location, whilst also being able to work over the internet and without the internet. Other noticeable technology inventions from 2009 include the Samsung Galaxy smartphone, marking Samsung's move into the smartphone race. The invention of software developed by a University of Wisconsin doctoral student, Adam Wilson, who, along with his advisor Justin Williams, developed software that enabled people to tweet by thinking, and Fujifilm's Fine Pics Real 3D W1 camera, otherwise known as the world's first digital camera capable of shooting in 3D. As we entered the 2010s and the 2000s became a distant memory, people began reminiscing about how technology had changed in the 10 years that had been and how much it would change in the future. And just as we hoped, the decade started with a bang as the rumours of a device that would change the way we worked and relaxed ended up being true after the iPad was announced by Steve Jobs on the 27th of January 2010. The first tablet of its kind. The original iPads came with 12 apps already built in, including Safari, Mail, Photos, Video, iPod, iTunes Store, App Store, Maps, Notes, Calendar and Contacts, with most of them able to be used in both portrait and landscape, and being openable with either a normal tap or multi-touch. However, it unfortunately didn't come with a camera, something that we unfortunately had to wait for another year until the second iPad came out. And if you are a young person born after wondering how you can get photos imported onto it, that was something you had to do either by plugging a lead into your Mac, by plugging a lead into your PC, or by plugging a lead into a digital camera. On the first day it went on sale, Apple sold over 300,000 iPads, but by the year after, they had sold 32 million units. Today, the iPad still remains popular, with critics citing its sleek design and more powerful interface as some of their favourite features. However, it wasn't only the iPads that changed how we did things in 2010, because it was also that year that we were introduced to controller-free gaming after Microsoft launched their Kinect motion sensor which was basically their answer to the Nintendo Wii, coming with a color camera accessory that was capable of tracking body movements, recognizing faces, and listening to voice commands. The Kinect required only your body movements to work, making it another console that made it possible to exercise by gaming. Within 11 days of launching, the Kinect ended up selling 1 million units, and by March 2011, this figure jumped to 10 million. Overall, the Kinect sold 24 million units, a lot less than the Wii, but more than the PlayStation Move, which sold 15 million units. Meanwhile, in other sectors of the tech industry, we started witnessing streaming starting to take off after Netflix, which was originally a DVD rental company, gained a larger amount of subscribers who joined to stream online content. 3 years after the option was first made available to subscribers. And in the social media world, a new social media site called Instagram was launched. However, we also got to see another bit of accessible tech launched this year. Was the accessibility tool called the iRider was launched with the aim of helping paralysed artists draw using their eyes. And in the networks world, we saw the dawn of 4G. By 2011, we were being introduced to technology that transformed us into new realities, whilst also expanding the capabilities of tech beyond local cinema screens and into game consoles. However, if you're interested in health technology, 2011 was a year when facial recognition and healthcare clashed together in an attempt to invent a futuristic device that sounds like it should come out of science fiction. Developed at the MIT Media Lab by students, the CardioCam medical mark was able to detect your heart rate, blood pressure, and other health issues while only requiring you to stare into its screen with a webcam built into it to record the changes in skin tone people will experience over time. A computer connected to the device was able to analyze the facial color change before displaying the user's heart rate on the mirror. But as your average person in 2011 was a bit more skeptical about facial recognition, the cardio camera never moved into worldwide production. But although the cardio camera failed to impress, there was still tech that did catch on. As 3D technologies we had grown used to seeing on cinema screens began making their way to game consoles, or should I say, a game console, as it was the year when the Nintendo 3DS came out. Debuted by Nintendo in 2010, the Nintendo 3DS was officially launched in 2011, with fans finally getting hold of it in February and March that year. Equipped with the usual two screens we were used to seeing on previous Nintendo DS systems. The top screen was capable of displaying 3D visuals, which you could also change the intensity of. And as if this wasn't enough, it was also the first Nintendo console to include a circle pad as well as a built-in motion and gyro sensor, although it wasn't necessary in every game. Within the first 2 days of launching in the UK, the Nintendo 3DS sold over 113,000 units, and by the end of its first year, it sold 3.61 units. But lastly, something else that was introduced in 2011 and didn't exist unless you were a developer before then was Siri, with the iPhone 4S being the first iPhone to fully include it, making it accessible for every iPhone user. Other noticeable technology inventions from 2011 include the advancement of touchscreen tables after the announcement of the Samsung SU40 touchscreen table and the expansion of glasses-free 3D TVs with the launch of the Toshiba 55ZL2. While it may have been feared for other reasons, mainly that it was rumoured as the year when the world was going to end, 2012 ended up being a year when people were slowly becoming used to technology taking over more areas of their lives, while others still dreamed of the day when their favourite tech brand would join the tablet race. And while people who were not fans of Apple did have a good choice of Android tablets they could choose from, with Dell, Samsung, Google and Amazon having already introduced tablets of their own, many still find themselves wishing for a tablet that would be powered by Windows until Microsoft finally answered their prayers in October 2012. Conceived, designed and engineered by Microsoft, the original Microsoft Surface included a USB port and a built-in kickstand, which offered something that many tablet technologies of the time didn't offer at all. But what really made this tablet unique was that it was the first to offer a touch cover with a keyboard and trackpad, which made it the first to enable users to fully turn their tablets into laptops, plus it also offered Windows 8. Despite the fact that it wasn't capable of running all Windows apps, the original Microsoft Surface sold $853 million in revenue in its first 8 months. However, by 2014, it was reported that the tablet was losing money, which would only be sorted after Microsoft expanded the brand into one that would include laptops and tablets, which is what they have today. However, we also got to see the birth of AR devices in 2012 after Google announced Google Glass. It was only a prototype that we got to see. By the time they launched, Google Glass sold 10,000 units, but the product ultimately ended up failing with fewer than 300,000 units selling overall. However, while the product didn't catch on, you could argue that they have led in some way to VR headsets, which offer some similar features. Another noticeable technology either announced or released in 2012 includes the world's first motion-activated screwdriver, created by a company called Black & Decker. The Tesla Model S, and in the world of accessibility, gloves called the Enable Talk gloves were created, which were equipped with sensors that could recognize sign language and translate it into text on a smartphone. By 2013, we were preparing for a future that would ultimately be ruled by machines, as well as a future that would expand what the technology we used beforehand was capable of, and nothing was a bigger example of this than the launch of the Oculus Rift and the coming of virtual reality headsets. While developers may have played around with a couple of different versions before 2014, virtual reality was very much still in its infancy. That all changed, however, after the Oculus Rift DK1 was launched in September 2013, after being featured at CES that year, where it became the first virtual reality headset to completely change the game. Built with plastic when it comes to the facial interface, as well as a flexible fabric strap. The Oculus Rift DK1 was released in black and with 640 by 800 resolution per eye. By July 2014, Oculus Rift development kits passed 100,000 sales, and by June 2015, Oculus revealed more than 175,000 development kits had been sold. As of 2025, there are 7 large brands of virtual reality headsets, but the number of headsets that exist are likely to reach into the hundreds by 2030. But another technology that started to make a name for themselves in 2013 were drones, which, in case you are living under a rock, are basically flyable machines which are capable of taking photos and videos, fighting wars, catching criminals, as well as being expected to be used as delivery drivers. But back in 2013, these flying robots were only starting to make it into the mainstream after they were involved with saving a man's life and been taken off from an underwater submarine. By 2030, drones are expected to be able to stay in the air for longer and to be capable of covering more ground without requiring frequent charging. But while all of this is great, I would love if drone designers could create drones that can be controlled with one joystick, or at least be customized to work like how accessibility settings on a normal game controller work. And other additional technologies that either improved or launched in 2013 include the Happy Labs Happy Fork, which was a smart fork capable of saving you if you were eating too quickly or eating too frequently. Next generation gaming consoles, such as the PS4 and the Xbox One, as well as the Nintendo 2DS, and improvements to voice recognition after voice recognition expanded past something that only Apple was working on and started to be integrated with Google search technology. Come 2014, people were starting to fall in love with technology that could take on tasks that they would normally do themselves. With the finance world, fitness world, and devices you could operate with a Wi-Fi connection, all playing major parts. In the finance world, physical purses and wallets began to be replaced with digital alternatives after Apple announced Apple Pay, marking the shift towards digital money. While in the fitness world, we continue to witness the rise of wearable tech as numerous companies announced wearable products that doubled as devices that could monitor your health. But if you're interested in why this year's tech is considered the year when science fiction became a reality, it's because this was the year when we started to see the dawn of the smartphone, otherwise referred to in the tech industry as the Internet of Things. A term used to describe a large range of devices instead of just a single product. The Internet of Things is the term used to describe all the technologies we connect to the Internet. But back in 2014, this concept was only starting to take shape, with guides written in publications such as Wired and Forbes describing what the Internet of Things meant and how likely it was to impact the public. In January of that year, experts were writing about how wearable technology were going to grow even bigger, and by June, numerous smart devices, including smart thermostats, had been created. By the end of the year, Amazon insiders had their first look at a certain smart assistant, and by the end of the year, brands started to create smart assistants of their own. As of 2025, the Internet of Things has continued to grow, and many brands are now focusing on creating their own hubs. But while some rumors and advancements, including the use of AI, may concern some people, It's worth remembering that some Internet of Things technology can help disabled people get more independent with devices such as smart lights and smart TVs, using as an example. Some have a noticeable technology announcements from 2014 include the handle of a board which, well, not exactly what fans of Back to the Future 2 had been hoping for, started to take shape, and the advancement of 3D printing across numerous industries, including in medicine, where it was used to develop a bionic eye for recreating chess sets and kayaks, as well as food and a lot more. 2015 was a year that expanded the new introductions of the previous year even further, with VR, AR and wearable devices all playing a major part. In the virtual reality and augmented reality world, we saw headsets that were made out of cardboard, while elsewhere in the tech industry, we started to witness a move towards digital art after Apple announced the Apple Pencil, a stylus which you could use as a pencil or a paintbrush. But devices that really started to blow the game this year were the large amount of sensors and wearable monitors that were released, advancing the world of health technology overall. If you asked most people to list off wearable technologies they were most familiar with, you would have heard a lot of people talking about the Fitbit and the upcoming Apple Watch. Yes, other wearable devices did exist, but many of them weren't as well known as the big two. And it often got even harder if you were looking for a monitor that was aimed at parents or the youngest in society. But that's when companies such as Mimo Baby, Mon Baby, Hoylet, Temptrack and Sprightling all released wearable devices that could track a baby's health. However, by some people were slightly more cautious about how information you would share with devices back then got shared. Devices like these only sold in a very limited amount. Kind of devices that came out in 2015 include the Nimbus sensor, which was capable of informing people with celiac disease or gluten sensitivity if a restaurant was gluten-free or not, as well as the Pantelligent cooking pan, which, by using Bluetooth and a special heat sensor, was capable of teaching you how to cook. By 2016, we were beginning to witness voice recognition coming on leaps and bounds, from a gimmicky thing that had many difficulties starting out to something that was slowly getting better at controlling household devices. And it's therefore not surprising that 2016 became the year when Google entered the smart home race with their smart speaker, the Google Home. launching in October 2016 in America. Though if you lived in the UK, you had to wait until April 2017 to use it. Google's answer to the student smart speaker that was released slightly beforehand. Google Home operated with the action words "Hey Google" and could play songs, artists, radio stations, playlists, and more from the Google Play Music app, while also being able to stream music from apps such as Pandora, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube Music, with the promise that iHeartRadio would be supported in the near future. Plus, you could also stream audio directly from your phone and control it with both Android and iOS devices. In its first year, the Google Home was capable of controlling over 1,000 smart home products from more than 100 brands. And while it isn't as popular as the certain Amazon smart speaker, it is still a highly successful smart assistant which currently supports over 50,000 smart home devices and also supports a lot more than the Apple HomePod. But it wasn't just smart speakers that continued to integrate voice control into their hardware in 2016, because it was also this year when GoPro started including it in their Hero 5 Black and Hero 5 session cameras, launched in October 2016. GoPro's Hero 5 cameras were capable of shooting up to 4K at 30 frames per second, of capturing photos at either 12 megapixels or 10 megapixels, depending on which one you went for. And if you were interested in diving, being capable of capturing content as long as you only went 33 feet. But where these cameras became groundbreaking was when you could operate both of them with voice control, as the cameras supported 7 different languages when they were first announced, with the promise that more languages would be coming. However, it wasn't all good news for every tech company that launched a product, with Apple learned after they unveiled Mac laptops with a touch bar. Other noticeable releases from 2016 include VR making its way to consoles after the PlayStation VR made its entrance, and the HoloSense alarm clock, which was a smart sleep tracker but which unfortunately was discontinued. The year of Face ID and gestures. You may be thinking by now that we'd seen it all, but 2017 proved that there was still a lot more coming. And this was especially true given that it was 2017 when the DJI Spark drone was launched, which trains to game in the drone industry, with the promise that it was capable of reading gestures that you would make with your hands. Launched in May 2017, the Spark drone was capable of automatically entering gesture mode as soon as it takes off, before then entering into palm mode, although you could also control it with a remote control or via a mobile device. However, elsewhere in the tech industry was the introduction of Face ID onto mobile phones on the iPhone X, marking a new way of unlocking our mobile devices. 10 months into its launch, the iPhone X had reached 63 million units. Meanwhile, in accessibility world, we saw the release of eSight 3 glasses, smart glasses that were customizable to the user, and other tech releases from 2017 include the Polaroid One Step 2, a retro instant camera with a couple of new features, as well as the release of the Nintendo Switch. When 2018 arrived, it was clear that smart homes were getting even smarter, with robot vacuums and location tracking devices able to give nerds a much easier life. In the fitness world, we saw advancements to e-bikes and skipping ropes with fitness trackers built into them, as well as mirrors that were capable of streaming live workouts. However, something that didn't exist much before 2018 and only started to become a reality from 2018 onwards was the rise in accessible tech, especially after such accessible tech was starting to be developed by mainstream tech companies. And nothing set the bar higher for this after Microsoft released the Xbox Adaptive Controller, making them the first mainstream tech company to create a controller that was aimed at the disabled community. While public figures for how many adaptive controllers sold aren't publicly available, the Xbox Adaptive Controller did go on to win the world's top design awards during the D and AD festival, during which it won the prestigious Black Pencil Award in the product design category. However, another accessibility product that was released in 2018 and got a wee bit less attention was the subscription service Era, which, although costing $99 per month for its standard plan, enabled its users to stream live videos of their surroundings to a 24/7 agent using either a smartphone or Era's proprietary glasses, with the result that whichever agent they had would then be able to answer questions, describe objects, and to guide users around a location. By the time we reached the last year in the 2010s, we were really starting to see accessible tech shine through again. And this included in multiple ways, such as through smart narration, as well as AR and they overcome my eye too. An AI device you could connect to the frame of any glasses you owned that was capable of then reading text. Meanwhile, in other areas of accessible tech, we saw talking hearing aids that were powered with AI and model canes. However, other devices that started to make a name for themselves in 2019 were gimbals, which, while they had existed before, started becoming a filmmaking tool capable of replacing a tripod, with DJI becoming a major player with the Ronin series. And lastly, VR headsets that expanded virtual reality even further arrived on the market in 2019 with the HTC Vive Pro I, Oculus Quest 2, Polaroid and also VR, all welcoming a massive amount of changes, whether that be the ability to control headsets with your eyes, to be able to move on freely while using a headset without any wires, to ride spaceships while sitting in the passenger seat in a car, or to practice nursing in a digital environment. And they all played a major part in getting the virtual reality world to where it is today, especially during the year that we went through next. It may not have been everyone's favourite year, but 2020 still brought forward advances to technology we had lived with for years before, while also introducing some new devices which have ultimately gone on to change the way we work, learn and travel, including services and software updates. To make it clear, they did exist in some way long before 2020, but if the pandemic of the decade had occurred 10 years before it actually did, the only choices we would have had if we wanted to keep on living a normal life would have been Skype or FaceTime, neither of which were as powerful as the many options we did have. Whether you chose Microsoft Teams or Zoom, these apps ended up being capable of replacing education, work meetings, and even quiz and movie nights, while also becoming hangouts for kids to meet up and to play games together if they used an app such as House Party. We've since moved on from family quiz nights, gaming sessions, and shared movie nights held over video chats, but the same apps we used to use have since been adopted for replacing face-to-face communication when you can't meet up in person, especially in industries such as teaching and journalism. I feel slightly bad for kids now because while you used to be able to get out of throwing a sickie and not attending a class, teachers can now insist that you still attend from bed. But on another note, if schools, universities, or further education colleges have to close for any reason, online learning can continue. And when someone can't turn up for an interview in the media, the same interview can be organised for online. Still, the advancements of video chat technology wasn't the only thing we witnessed in 2020, as some areas of the tourism industry created virtual tours of exhibitions that had been scheduled to take place. While they have been around in some sort of way since 1994, it wasn't until 2020 that virtual tours began to be regarded as a possible alternative of visiting an attraction in person. After numerous tourist attractions launched virtual tours of their popular destinations, including the Vatican, the Petra, and the Anne Frank House. But out of all of the tours that became available, the virtual tour I enjoyed most throughout lockdown was the George IV Art and Spectacle exhibition, which had been scheduled to take place in person, but was changed to virtual after the circumstances changed. I have since attended the virtual exhibitions of the Royal Brighton Pavilion, as well as the virtual tour of the Anne Frank House, which, as much as I would love to see, isn't the most accessible. This is why, if anything can still come out of the memories we have from the COVID pandemic, I would love an accessible tourist attractions who can't make their venues accessible for wheelchair-dependent people to compromise on creating a virtual tour, especially as the York is a lot cheaper for businesses and companies to enter today. Plus, it gets around the discrimination issue, but nevertheless, other noticeable releases and advancements to technology from 2020 include the launch of the Pico interactive Neo 2i augmented X-Vision and virtual reality headsets, which all expanded the world of VR past what it included at that stage, and AI started to really make a name for itself as AI robots came into existence to help teach 5 to 10-year-olds emotional skills, as well as the B-Wise AI powered Beehive and AI background noise cancellers. As the main year everyone wanted to end finally ended, we were hoping the year ahead would be different, but that unfortunately ended up not being the case. However, just because the world didn't change that much, with a lot of the world still having to put up with periodic COVID lockdowns, it didn't mean that technology didn't move on, with a lot of other devices and software still making their debut. And one area of tech we definitely saw advancing further in 2021 was AI. After Flawless AI, founded by former film director Scott Mann, launched TrueSync, which aims to make dubbing much easier. So, following its debut, TrueSync has got plenty of mixed feedback, with many excited about how it will make the dubbing process easier, but others still worried about how it could advance, and many of the people who are thinking the latter are voice actors, but of course that remains to be seen. Elsewhere in the tech industry of 2021, however, we also saw new updates to Google Maps Live View, including Live View opening straight away if you were in the app, and the ability to find out new details about shops and restaurants around you. And Lenovo launched their Think Reality K3 smart glasses, although it was aimed mainly at business people. Meanwhile, in accessibility world, Wacom released their Wacom Read device, which aimed on helping people who struggle with reading. And although expensive, it is capable of reading any text it's pointed at, thanks to artificial intelligence and the laser that has been built in. Thus, in the fashion area of technology, Nike launched their Go Fly Ease trainer for disabled people who find walking difficult. When 2022 came round, we were slowly beginning to reintroduce ourselves into the world, though we still weren't exactly living in a free utopia. However, while a lot of us may have had memories of a technologically advanced world that was filled with impressive but just old tech, the one we found ourselves moving into was one that continuously added more AI into industries, becoming more reliant on robots and adding so much tech. Many felt like it was complete overload, and yet again, it was the AI market that probably changed the most, as it was that year that AI became capable of creating 3D scenes as well as answering questions, writing articles, etc. For years, if you wanted to create 3D scenes for films, TV shows, video games, or anything else, you would have had to learn 3D modeling software, then break everything into motion by moving your model around frame by frame. There would of course have been easier ways of entering, such as with stop motion animation, but such cheap ways would have only been prominent in film and TV, and there were no ways of doing it if you were in the game industry. However, in 2022, we witnessed AI becoming capable of producing 3D scenes after NVIDIA made their AI-based NGP instant neutral resistance field, also known as NERF, capable of rendering models of images and videos into 3D scenes, with the only limit being that anyone using it had to download NERF's code base as well as the latest versions of Visual Studio, Buddha Toolkit, Python, and CMake. It met with moderate success, but results weren't really that great in 2022, although that has largely changed now. However, while AI did struggle to generate 3D art and models in 2022, there was another AI software that did make a bigger impact, and which has ultimately since become the world's most popular chatbot. And yes, of course I'm talking about OpenAI's ChatGPT, launched on the 30th of November 2022. ChatGPT is software that enables whoever is using it to ask questions, with the result that it can then do most of the things it is asked to do. But this skill doesn't exactly mean that it is completely trusted by everyone, especially not with academics, journalists, law professionals, authors, and others using it more as an assistant instead of a tool. However, it wasn't just AI that started making a name for itself in 2022, as it was also this year when we started to see the advancement of robots that could act as companions, with the launch of the LEQ robot. Health robots had been introduced long before 2022, but it wasn't until the 2010s that they started to advance in the way they have and started to be taken a lot more seriously. Nevertheless, just like other smart assistants in the modern world, they can interact with your voice as well as action, so it won't limit you if you can't move, but it can also respond to more of what you say compared to other smart assistants, making it seem like an actual friend. Another product that made its debut in the tech industry this year, however, was the Canon RF5 mm f8L dual fish lens, which made it easier for visual artists to create AR content. And lastly, we also saw the launch of a product called Calling, a Wi-Fi enabled device which made it possible for visually impaired children to learn and access Braille at home. By the time 2023 came around, life had finally returned to normal, with many people, including disabled people, finally starting to venture out again. And with this came the debut of various accessible technology devices, such as an accessible controller for PS5 consoles, which officially released on the 6th of December 2023 and has since been greatly welcomed by disabled gamers who have a PlayStation. Meanwhile, In other areas of the accessible tech industry, we saw the Swiss oral health company Curapox released their Samba robotic toothbrush with the aim of stopping 88% of disabled people experiencing tooth decay. While elsewhere we saw Nike Logic's new earbuds that, thanks to being made with electrical surfaces, makes it possible to navigate digital devices hands-free, with the hope that it will one day be capable of enabling wheelchair-dependent people to control their electric/powered wheelchairs. Moving away from the accessible technology sector, however, numerous other AIs made their entrance in 2023, including options for photo and video editing, web browsing, writing, titling, etc. And for my fellow Apple fans, it was of course 2023 when Apple gave us the Apple Vision Pro, a mixed reality headset that has introduced us to up-to-date spatial computing. As the world left 2023 behind and transitioned into 2024, some people were beginning to feel overwhelmed with the high amount of technology we were getting, though others still remained interested. In just a few years, we had gone from living with basic and useful tech with some handy AI features, while some other AIs released and raised questions over how much we were allowing AI to do for ourselves, such as AI fact checkers and dating assistants. By all means, there were a few useful AI apps, such as captions, but a lot of the AI that was released could be accused of taking over too much. But nevertheless, there were other more useful technologies that did come out last year, such as the Gangsters Relay X treadmill for wheelchair users. I've been open on Instagram about staying healthy as someone who is paralysed from the neck down. According to a 10th February 2025 report on obesity statistics by the UK Parliament, the excess rate is 10% higher among disabled people than it is among non-disabled people, with people with a learning disability and people who are physically disabled among the highest affected. Therefore, although I wouldn't be able to use it, I am delighted that wheelchair users who can use their arms and hands and are as interested in staying healthy as I am will be able to use a treadmill just like the able-bodied population elsewhere in the industry. We also saw the release of the iFixit Fix Hub Power Series Smart Surgery Arm, and in the phone accessory world, we saw the launch of the Cronus iPhone case, which treated us to yet another device that would help out with making smartphone filming easier. And lastly, good news for anyone born in the 80s, 90s or 2000s. We ultimately witnessed handheld gaming becoming cool again with releases such as the R360 retro gaming handheld and the Amberneck handheld, reintroducing us to our favourites throughout the years. So what has 2025 given us so far, and how do I hope that tech will advance further in the next 5 years? Well, reflecting on three major tech events, CES, WWDC and Microsoft's Xbox Game Showcase, though other events have taken place as well. I do have mixed views which could apply to numerous devices, so why don't I start off at the beginning? I was impressed with the number of health devices we saw at CES this year, such as AI Dock, which is a mobile and PC that can screen read and diagnose cervical cancer, as well as devices that can help women track the perimenopause. But just as I believe AI isn't exactly evil, and there could be a time in future when modern technology could be used to assist with certain aspects of the health industry, the idea of relying on an AI app to get diagnosed with cancer, especially cervical cancer, is a wee bit concerning, especially as such apps could call for having to take pictures of private parts that would then be uploaded to an app. However, I was impressed by virtual reality and metaverse accessories we got to see, such as Facebook, where you can meet up with other people, take photos together, dance and create music videos to share with friends. Moving on to other devices announced more recently, I want to first of all react to the new Xbox handheld that we got to see during Microsoft's Xbox Summer Showcase, which as of the time of recording took place slightly over a week ago. Well, I am happy Xbox is giving its fans an Xbox handheld. I am slightly anxious about accessibility, given they only showed off two handheld controllers in one of their overview videos, and not something like the Xbox adaptive controller being used on it, nor anything else being said about controller access, though from what I understand, you will still be able to use another controller with the handheld anyway. I would say more, but this really isn't the post for that. So let me quickly just talk about the AI we're being told we're going to see. No surprise to anyone, AI is meant to get even more intelligent, with AI agents, assistants and customizable AI on the horizon. We are also meant to see AR and VR blending together as mixed headsets. However, I'm looking more forward to customizable versions that will mean it's easier to play games if you're physically disabled. And while I am looking forward to some things that were mentioned at WWDC this year, I only really like the games app, and none of the AI software really excites me to the point that I need to get it. While it is interesting how fast AI is expanding, we have seen it starting to freak some people out, and this is why we've seen many people picking up dumb phones as well as other retro tech. For this reason, technology companies now have multiple streets to go down when creating devices they're releasing, with audiences requesting both up-to-date technology and less advanced technology. But something I think is noticeably missing from the dumb technology market that is slightly more common to see in the smart technology market is the lack of accessible features that could make retro tech more accessible to the world's growing disabled population. So for that reason, what would I like the technology industry to morph into in the next 4.5 years, and what will we be living with in 2030? Well, something I am hoping to see by 2030 would be accessible retro handhelds, or at least a handheld that sells a separate device with 3.5mm jacks along the side of it, which can be plugged into a port on the handheld. The two images you're seeing now are an AI version of a handheld with a couple of 3.5mm jacks in them, plus an edited version of the dongle I use to record on my microphone, which has been edited to explain what I mean and the type of options I would like to see. I would also like to see retro technology with some accessibility features that smartphones have, whether those features be voiceover and spoken content, support for hearing devices and captions, or making the buttons easier to press, and the ability to control a dumb phone with your voice. However, in relation to the question, the title of this video asks, technology has certainly changed a lot since 2005, hasn't it? From services you couldn't rely on our connect to the internet, and that were a lot more clunky, to digital exercise existing but not being able to be used outside of your house, to devices that are capable of tracking your health wherever we go, to the digital space becoming where you go to work, attend school or go to events. Then finally, to a science fiction concept people had been talking about for years, ultimately changing everything. It has been quite the ride. This, I guess, introduces another question I'd like to ask. Is all the technology we have now bad? And is it possible that some of our new tech and older tech blended together in a modern world could work? I don't know what the correct answer to this is, but out of all the negative experiences with technology people talk about now, accessible technology is the one thing that we didn't see much of 20 years ago, but has since managed to pull people together. And my question to the tech industry, is there more in that? Well, congratulations for making it all the way to the end of this video. And if you have enjoyed watching what you have just watched, please consider subscribing to the channel. I upload new videos twice a month on accessible technology and gaming. So if that is the type of thing you enjoy, please consider subscribing. And I have all my socials linked below, including my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can support the content that I put out, as well as other things.